Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Please, if you can, I'd like to know that everybody is here, and it would mean a lot if you would drop a message in the chat box just to let us know that we're all here. Okay, thank you very much. You're all very welcome to iVoice Africa's first webinar ever. Today, we are going to be looking at a brief introduction of iVoice Africa, and we'll have our speaker, Oluwatobi J. Oladipo. Then we'll have a question and answer session towards the end of the meeting. Then there will be a call to action and a survey as well. If you have to speak or you have any questions, please kindly introduce yourself before doing so. Do not forget to mute your microphone if you're not speaking. And don't forget to unmute your microphone as well if you need to speak. My name is Amanda, and once again, I welcome you to iVoice Africa's first webinar.
Imagine a unified world where your words can reach the farthest corners of Africa. Imagine a world with one language. What a world that would be. iVoice Africa focuses on voiceovers, translations, and transcriptions into all African languages. Our services also include on-site and remote interpretation, website localization, multilingual customer, email and chat support, and business process outsourcing. Our partners, artists and vendors are professionals who are capable of turning up projects within short periods. For more information, please visit www.ivoiceafrica.com. Imagine a world with one language. Imagine iVoice Africa.
Please welcome our CEO and founder of iVoice Africa, Oluwatobi J. Oladipo.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Can you all hear me, please? Let me just ensure that you can all hear and see me, and as well see my screen as we are speaking this afternoon. Just drop a couple of chats in the maybe high fives, hello, hi in the chat box. Let me just be sure that the people with me that can hear me. Can I see that? All right. At the same time, please let me also see what country in the world you are in. You could also just put, oh, hi, my name is Beethoven. I think Beethoven is in Angola, I think, Beethoven, Angola, Kalumi, Nigeria, let me just see what part of the world that you're in and the chat box, just to be sure that I can connect with everyone. Great. Naledi from Johannesburg, Louisa from Mozambique, Palumi from Nigeria, Soli from Nigeria. Thank you so much. All right, thank you, and I welcome you to this conversation about the voiceover industry. We will be talking about the voiceover industry in Africa, particularly. Most of the conversations that we would be having this afternoon would be about the voiceover industry, the sector here in Africa, some of the opportunities that we do not particularly seem to tap into, and how we can begin to tap into these opportunities. All right. Please allow me to introduce myself. I am the founder and CEO of iVoice Africa. My name is Oluwatobi. You can call me Toby for short. I am, okay, I don't know if, let me just make it this way or this way. Okay, great. All right, so about me, I'm the founder and CEO of iVoice Africa. iVoice Africa is about 2 years and a couple of months. I am an English and French voiceover artist as well. I've been fortunate enough to dub at least a role in over 80 movies. At the same time, I am a language enthusiast and researcher. I am a voiceover coach. I'm a telecommunications engineer, and I am proficient in 4 languages. And I am actually also in process of learning French language. I'm learning Arabic language. You can connect with me on social media, Instagram, Twitter at Fred Thobi. And of course, you can always reach out to me via email at info@ivoiceafrica.com. Now, so we could begin this conversations, right? I'd also like to look at the chat box at some point. If you speak any other language apart from English, could you please drop it in the chat box? I would like to see it. It would be very interesting to see, the number of bilingual or multilingual people that we have on this conversation, because most of the conversations that we would have today will be tailored, around, languages that are maybe not particularly English, so to say. All right, moving on. The first question, on our minds is, why is Africa a frontier for global brands? You'd realize that, this is fantastic. I see Swahili, German, French, Portuguese, Africans, and Sitswani. This is very interesting. Great stuff, great stuff. I'm looking for, one other person that speaks Turkish, I speak English, French, Turkish, and Yoruba. And of course, I mentioned at the moment I'm learning Arabic. So this is it. So why is Africa a frontier for global brands? According to reports recently, a couple of months ago, by Africa Business Magazine, non-African brands account for about 84% of the top 100 most admired brands in Africa, and 99.3% of these brands are most valuable. Now, you would notice, the establishments and how much that multinational brands come into do in Africa, the likes of Google, Mark, Intel, IBM, Cisco, Samsung. These brands have been able to identify what it is to run businesses in Africa. Right? African consumers are young, mostly young, and willing to spend. You'll realize that most of these devices or most of these softwares that we use on a day-to-day basis are made by some of these brands. These are the brands that you see each and every other day. And sometimes you'll be wondering that why do these brands come to Africa and invest so much into Africa? Now, if you look below, these are the consumer goods that we use each and every day of our lives. The likes of Dove, Pears, and all these other brands that you see on the screen. These are people these are brands that we use on a day-to-day basis, right? And the fact that Africa has the population in Africa for young people is a lot, and so they want to connect with you. They try to connect with you. They always want to connect with everyone in Africa. They want to sell. They want to upscale their businesses. A lot of them go on some very heavy and serious marketing strategies that we don't get to see even in other parts of the world. Now, knowing this, 53% of income earners in Africa are between 16 and 34 years old, an age group that tends to be more aware of and eager to try new products. Now, let's look at another thing. Now, there is a popular unicorn called Viacom. They are the owners of, the several channels that you see, BET, Comedy Central, MTV Base, Paramount, and all of these things. I was reading an article on them recently about how they are trying to deliberately create content that are Africa specific. Now, when they're creating content that are African specific on these channels, you would see another level of the deliberacy in how far they go. But you see, there is a loophole in the efforts that they're making and our preparedness when they come calling, and that's the reason for this conversation. So these guys want to run advertisements in certain areas of the world. They want to localize their contents, and all of that stuff. But they come to Africa, they approach voice artists, they approach people that can actually do their work. But for some reason or the other, they are unable to because they cannot get access to these people. Now, at the same time, we can look at non-profit organizations. iVoice Africa gets to work with a lot of non-profit organizations, particularly, those who who are running some campaigns for refugees, for people in need, in some certain areas of the world. And they would need to communicate with them in their language. They would need to communicate with them in manners that are relatable to them. So all of these things I've been speaking about for now are the needs. The reason why there is a demand, but the availability for what these guys are demanding for is not particularly enough. Now, so far we've worked on quite a number of languages in iVoice Africa. We've worked on a couple of languages in South Africa, in East Africa, North, and of course the West Africa. And we would usually observe a bottleneck when maybe a client comes requesting for a certain type of language spoken by a certain type of gender, with a certain type of dialect. And when we get to that point where we cannot particularly provide because the availability of that is in short supply, then we do not create as much opportunities for ourselves. And at the same time, we do not create as much opportunities for these guys to meet their marketing strategy. Now, what makes Africa a gold mine? Why do you think these guys are coming into Africa? And I found a very interesting statistics from the United Nations saying that we have an estimated population of about 1.2 billion, and only 6.5 million speak English as their native language. I know particularly in some countries, Nigeria, for example, I am from Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, there's a lot of British colonized countries in Africa. And so it's fair enough that we have about 6.5 million people who speak English as their native language. However, some other countries who do not particularly have English as their first language, countries like Mozambique, Angola, English is not particularly the first language, but of course you get to have quite a number of them who speak English fluently. So the total number of people who speak English in Africa would be 237 million people, including natives and non-native speakers. Now, what does this tell you? So if 237 million people in Africa speak English in total, what happens to the other 1 billion people who do not speak English? So you'd see that on the side of the people that we are trying to reach out to who do not particularly speak English, and the other people who would want to maybe be voiceover artists or want to be in the industry where maybe as a translator even, what happens to that gap? People who want to speak, people who cannot speak English and would need content in the language that they can relate to. For example, even though we have most of the population in Nigeria that speak English, I've been in some cities where I get there and I'm unable to communicate with them in English, or the Nigerian pidgin that is quite often spoken amongst everyone in Nigeria. And now the funniest thing is this happened to me in the capital city. So I was in the capital city, I was trying to buy food or something like that. And I spoke English to this person. She didn't understand. I spoke pidgin, she didn't understand. I don't speak any other Nigerian language apart from Yoruba. Hausa and Igbo is just maybe a couple of phrases or sentences. And I couldn't really express myself. So it means that even in very urban areas in Nigeria, for example, and even in Africa, there's still a huge percentage of people who are unable to speak English. So what is our availability for people like this? And at the same time, how are we making ourselves available for people who are trying to reach out to this type of audiences? Now, that's what I'm talking about, the loophole. Now, the loophole is, as voiceover artists, this conversation, would tailor more to voiceover artists that are, on this conversation. But just to be sure that, everyone is still with me, let me just, I'm just going to check in the chat box. Let me just be sure that you're still with me. Just say I'm here, something like that. I just want to be sure that I can connect to everyone, and, I'm just speaking to myself. Okay, great stuff. Just give me a second. All right, great stuff. Okay, so everyone is following, great. So I'll just go back to sharing my screen. So now this is the loophole that we face. Now, majority of us here are voiceover artists, right? But you see, we're continuously putting ourselves in an overcrowded population of a very highly competitive market. Now, this is what this means. When you want to start out as a voiceover artist, of course, maybe your most comfortable language is English, or maybe French, or maybe Portuguese, right? That is your most comfortable language. Now, tendencies are you would want to start doing voiceovers in that language. But the reality is there's like 1,001 persons, other persons who are like you, who are starting off and are trying to build their career in this very niche. Now, but what we do not realize on the long run is when we keep doing this, we're creating problems for tailor-made requests. And I'm going to come to that in more details, in the next couple of slides. But we are all doing the same thing. We are all sounding alike. I remember speaking to a close friend who knows I'm a voiceover artist. And she was saying to me that a lot of voiceover artists sound alike. And she's never able to distinguish some of the voiceover artists that she particularly knows, because she runs an ad agency, and so she's worked with a couple of voiceover artists in the past. So of course she would reach out to people that she knows that are very professional and very good on the job, because of course there is a personal relationship or work relationship, whatever the case may be. But on the long run, it comes off as all the male voiceover artists sound the same. We're all trying to give this deep voice, this same method of delivery and all that kind of stuff. And likewise in other languages as well. So the question now is, what are we particularly doing as individuals, as professional voiceover artists, to stand out from the crowd? What is it that we are doing differently that, maybe other people are not particularly doing? Now, at the same time, this conversation is, I know you've probably seen a couple of voiceover websites where you can join in and get a couple of jobs every now and then. There's Badalgo, Voice123, Voices.com. There's a number of them. Even in Africa, there's a couple of, freelance websites in Africa where you can sign up, upload your demos and stuff like that, and people can find you. But you see, there's still a lack of, of significant comparative advantage, because if I'm going to this site, I've been on this site sometimes to look for artists for a certain job, because we get a couple of, casting requests, in different languages or different accents. And let me even speak about the accents as well. So I'd like to let you know that accents play a very huge role in what you do as a voiceover artist, in clients' requests as a voiceover artist. Now, I've had people, who joined the voiceover industry, and maybe growing up, I remember I would always watch cartoons, that would have some type of American accent. Most of them would have some American accents, and then as a little kid, you'd see little kids pick up on this habits. They will grow up, and then of course their accents begin to change because they have been practicing maybe what they see or what they listen to, what they hear on the TV, right? So we grew up into this and maybe transition. So this sort of transitions and goes on into when we become professional voiceover artists, and then we are saturating the niche of the American accent voiceover artists. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, when I am a casting director, if I'm looking for an American accent voiceover, I know where I'm going to target my search to. Of course, I'm going to want someone who's a Native American, maybe lives in the US or was born in the US or practices in the US, whatever the case may be. That is the direction in which I'll channel my search to. But you see, now we're having people now in Africa who are trying to sell themselves as that. And going back to how I started this conversation about leaving a gap, another reason why clients will be very accent specific when they're looking for voiceover artists or voiceover talents is because they know that the target audience would relate more when they listen to someone sound like this. if I am trying to reach out to maybe a marketing, let me use let me say in Sudan. If I'm trying to reach out to markets in Sudan there is Sudanese. No, let me use Djibouti. In Djibouti, right? In Djibouti, there is they speak French, they speak Arabic, and maybe a couple of other local languages in Djibouti. So if I'm trying to reach the audience in Djibouti, I know that I would want to do a localized content that would be in Arabic. And mind you, Arabic is a kind of language that has so many dialects. So someone from Djibouti may not particularly understand the Arabic that's spoken in the Middle East, in Iraq, in Saudi Arabia and all of that stuff. So when I'm looking for research, I know the direction in which I'm going. So I want it to be someone in Djibouti because I'm trying to reach Djibouti audiences. But you see, as voiceover artists, we do not tend to realize that, but instead we tend to come up with I would say, mechanized ways of speaking that is keeping us out of jobs. When a client asks you for maybe your demos, as much as you want to show your dexterity, oh, I can sound like this, which is not a bad thing. And do not get me wrong, it's not a bad thing to be able to sound American. It's not a bad thing to be able to sound British. But the thing is, if they are requesting for a certain type of accent or for a certain type of language, you need to put your best foot forward. Now, I will not approach you because I hear that you sound American or you sound British or you sound, you speak English with a European accent. I'm going to approach you because I'm trying to see if you have what I need for this project. So that is what is missing in this freelance website up to date. And it gets casting directors overwhelmed in the process. So sometimes it's not even about your number of years of experience. I've been there. I'm there even as a voiceover artist when maybe you're not getting the jobs as frequent as you normally would. It's not because you're bad. It's not because of the number of experiences you've had or you've not had. Most times it's not particularly about your rates or maybe the quality of your production or the quality of your voiceovers, but it's the vocal distinctiveness as tailored to the client's requirements. And that's why, I'm very sure you must have seen things like when you get rejected, for a casting, maybe for an audition that you have done, it's not particularly because you are bad or maybe you didn't put your best foot forward, but sometimes it's just little extra details that we do not pay attention to that makes us not to go ahead when we get this audition opportunities. Now, that brings us to the conversation. I had to, build this foundation so that you can understand, how I'm going to then jump into the purpose of this conversation, which is about artificial intelligence and how it's gradually taking over the voiceover industry. Now, you see, if I check, we all want a life that is easy for us. We want something that won't stress us. So if we're stressed casting directors this much, people who are looking for a certain type of voiceover artist, a certain type of accent will stress them so much that they cannot find. I remember a couple of months ago, we had a request from Netflix for voiceover artists, in Comoros, if I remember properly. And the struggle was a lot because while I would identify people in Comoros, or maybe we couldn't even identify people in Comoros who would speak French with a Comoros accent or something like that. I really can't remember the story, but we could not do that job because it took us either it took us a long time or maybe we didn't end up getting someone in Comoros that speaks French with I don't know what they call that accent or whatever it is. I'm not sure I remember particularly, but this is one of the situations. And so that's why when, casting directors and, the tech developers, the tech entrepreneurs are looking at these loopholes in our industry and saying, you know what, we can make it easy for ourselves. Now, this start you see was done by Edit. Edit is a statistics company. And this was done in 2017. They said by 2020, 50% of all searches will be voice searches. In 5 voice activated devices are essential for their lives. We have 19% of people using Siri at least once a day, and using voice search on a daily basis, teenagers will be 55% and adults will be 44%. So this is how we're trying to, this is for me, the beginning of language technology or vocal technology. because I mean, I'm probably laying in bed. Maybe I just wake up in the morning and I want to call my significant other, or I want to call someone, and I pick up my phone, my iPhone. I'm like, oh, Siri, please call this person for me. That's because I'm probably too sleepy. I'm not able to type on my phone, and so I just use Siri. So that is how this conversation about artificial intelligence started. And if it had started with mobile phones, now look, there are so many other things that have continued in that direction in voice technologies. Alexa, Google Now, Cortana. Now they've come into play. All you just need to shout is, oh, Alexa, play me this. Alexa, do this for me. Alexa, tell me this. Now, this is an eye-opener for you to see that tech entrepreneurs are looking at these loopholes that we've created for ourselves and are saying, you know what, we're going to create solutions for ourselves nevertheless. Maybe because if I needed this, I will not be able to get it. And mind you, the reality about artificial intelligence technologies is they most times use human language to develop algorithms that they use in making this AI technologies. So looking at the progressiveness of how voice technologies have begun to take over our jobs, take over some of the things we do in translation. There is a lot of translation softwares now that all you just need to do is to put your text inside and it automatically generates it for you. So even for those who are translators here, it's gradually as well taking some aspect of your jobs. It's gradually doing that. I don't know if there are people here who may not particularly understand, a bit of artificial intelligence, but I'm just going to give a brief overview of that just now. So it's an area of computer science that emphasizes the creation of intelligent machines that think and react like humans. So 37% of businesses and organizations employ artificial intelligence. More than 3 billion voice assistants are now in use, and 8 billion of them will be used by 2023. Now, we're 2 years away from 2023. The global AI market value is expected to reach $267 billion by 2027. And AI is expected to contribute $15.7 trillion to the global economy by 2030. Now, so tell me, if I am an investor, I'm looking for someone with, a brilliant idea in the artificial intelligence industry. AI covers so many areas of the world, or so many areas of human labor. There is, of course, now I'm speaking about voice technologies. There is, robotics. We can name it. The evolution of AI is very wide. It's very wide, and it goes. There is no limitation to how far AI can go. But I'm very focused on the voice technologies of AI. Now, if I'm an investor and maybe someone comes to me with a very brilliant idea about AI technology in voice, I would want to pump money into it because I know that the statistics are telling me what the future of AI would be. And so I know that because it's going to be an ever-evolving niche, I want to put my money in it. Now, let me get you shocked with another information. So do you know that now that, there's a lot of talks about robotics, diversity and inclusion, how artificial intelligence is taking over human labor. In some countries where human labor is particularly expensive, more companies would rather invest in AI technologies. And in countries where the human labor is less expensive, they would rather go in there and want to pay for human labor. Now we're in an industry where I would say that people charge their rates based on experience or based on the nature of the job, but there are so many factors that come into play when we're trying to give our clients rates for our services as a voiceover artist. Now, another thing that as well distinguishes a voiceover artist from another is your professionalism and maybe your years of experience and all of those very important details. So if I know that if I buy and subscribe for a software that is maybe $50 per month, I can get as many languages as possible in a very professional manner. I can as well just do a $50 per month software subscription over having to book voiceover artists each and every day of the month because I am trying to have them do my job. And that's what we can see here with Speechello. I was in one of my consultants in the UK reached out to me when Spicello launched, and he sent me the link. I literally woke up to that message. Oh, there's Spicello now. What are we gonna do? I mean, these guys are probably gonna come over and take over business for you. And I wasn't panicking initially, but I'm gonna tell you why I began to panic eventually. But now look at Spicello, for example. So Spicello is I would have loved to do like a video demo, that I saw about Spicello. But free time, you can go on Google, check out Spicello. Spicello is a voiceover software where you just pay only $47, and it's not a monthly recurring fee. It's just $47, and then you can have English and 23 other languages that will be doing your voiceovers for you. Now, you'll be shocked to know that so many other industries or so many other companies are also looking in this direction as well. I was in a tech event in Dubai last month where they were speaking on artificial intelligence, and I had the opportunity to communicate or to have a couple of conversations with some of these guys that are in the AI industry. And when they started telling me the ideas, the algorithms, and how much it takes before they're able to create AI voice technology out of a certain language, I marveled. Some of these languages take about 50 hours of voice sample before they're able to run something on it and come up with the software. But at the end of the day, if people are investing this much, people are investing this big, and we're still not closing that gap that I spoke about when we started, then it means that this would always continue to graduate. And so I was speaking about how I wasn't bothered when I got the news about Spicello. But look at this. There is a British Ghanaian engineer who's African, and something I'm very proud of as well. So he came up with this earbuds that does auto translation. So this is more like an interpretation job. So people who are interpreters, who normally their job is just to maybe be on a Zoom meeting and interpret meetings or do some other type of interpretations, if companies would rather invest in these earbuds, they can have their conferences, they can have their, you name it, they can have it covered in these languages. Now, I know you already know, probably in some of this, United Nations conferences, they already have like this inbuilt translation device where if maybe someone is speaking English, they can be hearing in a different language in real time. But you see, these devices are not those that are mobile that you can always carry around when you're moving around. Well, if you have this earbud, for example, you're on the road, English is not your native language, and someone comes up to you in English trying to speak to you, and maybe French is your native language, you are able to catch what the person is particularly saying on the spot because it's mobile. Now, that is another area that you can look at. I mean, honestly, so this guy raised about $5 million in fundraising for this project. But now I'm very sure that, there's going to be a couple of more investments into the job. And maybe we could begin to start seeing, I'm not particularly sure the number of languages or the languages that are embedded in this earbud, but I would not be surprised if tomorrow there are African languages available in this earbud: Swahili, Afrikaans, these very common African languages, Yoruba. I won't be surprised if they get infused into these earbuds in the nearest future. And you see, that has particularly taken away the role of interpreters it's taking them away from their jobs, because now there is a tailor-made solution that you can always run with on the spot that would not embarrass you. But the question now is, going back to how I started and what we are now, the African language and accent is very unique and extremely difficult to find an algorithm for text-to-speech software. So would you rather recognize your uniqueness or be a motivation for the evolution of voice technologies and artificial intelligence? Now, what this means is, now that you've seen that, I mean, honestly speaking, I'm going to tell you, because of course I had the chance to have conversations with these guys about what they're looking to do, AI and voice technologies. I was really curious to know about it. And a couple of them shared their experience with me about how they tried to get into some African languages, but maybe there was a loophole one way or the other because of one or two little situations. So you see, ideally, it takes a lot to build an AI system for voice technologies. But the thing is, people would rather go in this direction because they're seeing the loophole and the bottleneck in the availability of human resources or human labor that can be tailored to this languages or to these situations. So where are we as voiceover artists in bridging this gap and putting ourselves, marketing ourselves as available for this opportunities? How available are we for these opportunities when they come around? Honestly, I'll tell you, we get in iVoice Africa, of course, just like the presentation, we provide localization services in all African languages. We try to represent as many African languages as possible. And so we get to realize even some languages that we've not particularly heard before. I mean, there's over 2,000 plus languages in Africa, and some languages that are spoken by a minority. It baffles me that we still even would get requests for that. For example, we had a request for a language spoken in South Sudan called Beja, and there was another one in Nigeria spoken in Cross River State called Ekajuk. Now, I remember working with a Ekajuk translator, and he was saying to me that there is nobody that speaks a Ekajuk language that wouldn't know him, because there are a very few of them that speak a Ekajuk language, and he's the only maybe popular or best translator for that language. So this is telling you how there's a lot of minorities that speak some of this language, and some of these languages, as a matter of fact, are getting extinct. And so this conversation again is not to always add an extra language to what you already do. For example, I told you I speak English, French, Yoruba, and of course, in process of Arabic, but I do not do voiceovers, particularly in Yoruba, and there are reasons for that. But honestly, I would do other things that incorporate to Yoruba, but I do not do voiceovers in it. However, I remember when I started doing movie dubbings in French. When I started doing movie dubbings in French, I was very curious to know why that in Nigeria, there's a very little minority that speaks French fluently in Nigeria. So why would I be casted for a French movie role? Someone who's not a native speaker of that language, why would I be casted for that movie role? And I was asking the director at the time, and he said it was because of the availability. For some of those roles I got, it was maybe because the actual person who was acting the role, there was maybe Black American, and they just wanted to put that fuse of the person can speak English and at the same time can speak French, and so I was getting those type of similar roles. But now, how are we building ourselves for these opportunities, these several opportunities that are coming along in different languages, in different dialects, in different areas as well? The voiceover industry is big enough. And honestly speaking, some of the ideas that you have, even if you run a podcast, if you run a YouTube channel, I want to believe that everyone on this call is one way or the other a stakeholder in the voiceover industry, no matter how you are connected to it as a translator, as a voiceover artist, you're a business owner, you are, an interpreter. I know that one way or the other, you need to create several opportunities for yourself in this industry, because there is a high demand, and I'm not going to lie to you, there is a high demand for a lot of these languages. There's a high demand for a lot of these accents. And let me just say something else that's funny as well. I remember being in a studio when I started my career as a voiceover artist, and this was when I started, maybe my first one or two studio experiences, and I was supposed to sound like a typical Nigerian father with, a proper Nigerian accent, right? And I remember the script was maybe a minute long, but I ended up spending over 2 hours in the studio because I couldn't properly get my accents. And honestly, I was casted for that role because I had done a voiceover previously in Pidgin English. So of course, anyone who speaks Pidgin would, of course, I mean, you cannot speak Pidgin with some type of accent. You will speak Pidgin as a Nigerian or like a local man, whatever the word is, right? So as long as you're able to speak Pidgin, the tendencies are you're able to give us a localized accent that can be tailored for this particular type of script. But I was in the studio that day and I could not get into character. Now, character in this case is the term, the accent. I could not get into the accent that was required for this kind of job. So that was embarrassing for me at the time. But the thing is, look at yourself. Maybe these are some of the reasons why some of your auditions are not passing. These are some of the reasons why maybe when you send your demos to a signing client for a type of job, you're not getting a response. Not that you are bad, but you are not particularly solving their problems. And honestly, from my experience as a casting director as well, I know what it takes. I know what people are looking for when they're getting, demos, they're getting auditions and whatnot. I know what it takes, to say, oh, this is the right candidate for this job. This is some of the people I see on this conversation are people I think I've worked with in the past, on some sort of languages or whatnot. So we need to bridge that gap between what people are looking for and our uniqueness. You need to be unique. So this is this conversation. Thank you for your time. And I would love to take questions from you all. If you have questions, maybe there's some comments, some things you'd like to speak about. I'm just going to open my chat so that I can see these conversations. So I can see a request saying, please just raise your hand. I think the admin will be taking control of this. We should end in the next 10 minutes or so. So let's have a conversation about what questions do you have about this? What do you think? Do you have questions, the things you want to get clarity on? All right. Just to be sure everyone is following, do we have questions, comments, some additions, one way or the other? Okay, so I see Naledi say, Beethoven, by the way, I see your request. So this webinar would be available on demand after this meeting. So you can always send a mail to marketing@ivoiceafrica.com, and you would get the conversations proceeding from there. So this was quite informative. Thank you. How does an aspiring voiceover artist know the rates? Now, this is quite tricky because as a voiceover artist, you are stuck in between. Should I just jump on the job? And what if he's trying to get the cheapest offer? Now, I've been there, honestly. And I must say, even when I started my career as a voiceover artist, I did a lot of free jobs before I even started charging. So the thing is, you need to just understand your client. And of course, at the same time, you're not always opportune to have the full information about who your client is ahead of the time. But if you're opportuned to have an information about who the client is and what the client is aiming to use the voiceover for, then you can begin to create other segments to your rates. But there are industry standard rates, for non-broadcast, for broadcast rates. I think we have some of this on our blogs. If you visit www.ivoiceafrica.com/blogs, you'll see a couple of blogs, speaking about the rates, about how to charge, about how not to charge, why a client would rather pay a lot of money for voiceovers to a certain person and would pay very low rates to someone else, for that very same language, so these are the questions you need to ask. How good are you? How professional are you? There's also an aspect of your your number of years in the industry, the kind of clientele that you have, that you can as well present forward and say, you know what, this is my clientele. These are the people I've worked for. So this is my rates. This is what you have to charge me. But that comes with progress, that comes with days, that comes with a lot of time. However, if you're just starting, I would say check out industry standard rates for voiceovers and maybe use that as a benchmark for yourself. In addition to that, I would say that do not reject jobs if you're just starting out a voiceover career. Do not say that this job is low paying. Yeah, I know some jobs are very ridiculously low paying, but honestly, if you're just starting out, I would advise take it. There could be several reasons why the job is low paying, but I'll let you know that some of these low paying jobs could be your stepping stone to the big guns. I can share my story with you about how I started, the kind of jobs I've done that sort of give me opportunities for another one. But it's a long conversation, but that's just what I'm going to say to you, right? If you're starting out, and at the same time realize that you need to as well build your portfolio. That's the first thing people ask for. Or send me some of the jobs you've done in the past. I want to see it. So if you've not particularly done a professional job in the past, and then you're trying to say, oh, I'm a voiceover artist, I'm a professional, I can do your job. How am I supposed to believe you? Do you understand? So those are the things you should be looking out for if you're just starting out your career as a voiceover artist, when it comes to rates and all of that stuff. I hope that's able to answer your question. All right. So if we have more questions, please let me know. Okay. So I know that so if there's no further questions, just quickly, I would like to if I could get like a brief message from everyone on this conversation. What was your takeaway in particular in this conversation? What was that one thing that resonated so much with you? I would like to have at least one or two feedbacks as well. What was it about this conversation that resonated with you? What was one thing that struck you so much? So please, Beethoven, please go on with your question. All right, okay, I see you want to speak. I think Admin, please unmute his mic, or I don't know if you can do that yourself.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Taipo.
Hi, Beethoven.
Yeah, I'm Beethoven. I'm from Angola. My question is, if the voice, the accent is more important than how I express the words, if there is the big issues, the big issue.
Could you take your question again, just to be sure I understood properly?
For the voiceover, do I have to, I must have a strong voice for do the job. I'm starting as a voiceover, and I think this is the big issue for me.
Okay. Okay, so if I got your question, this is your question. How important is the accent, when you're starting off as a voiceover artist? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay. So you could be very dexterous in your in the kind of accents you're able to provide. I know voiceover artists in Africa that are able to imitate a French accent, speaking English, a Russian accent and all of that stuff. It's very fantastic because that would actually create more job opportunities for you. The fact that you're that versatile and that you can switch accents here and there. But the thing is, you need to first of all identify your niche, right? So if I know that, for example, I have never sold myself as someone who speaks American accent or British accent. I stick with African accent, and sometimes I would say, oh, I have a West African accent or South African accent because I'm able to imitate those accents. However, I just hide under the big umbrella of saying I am an African accent voiceover artist. So if you're from Angola, I know that Portuguese is mostly spoken in Angola, but you speak English. and I know that there is an Angolan English accent. If there is something like that, maybe. If I am a client and I say, I want someone from Angola to speak English on this job, then that is something. I know that when I'm looking for an English-speaking Angolan voiceover artist, I can come to Beethoven and say, oh, no, this is the guy I want for this job. We have seen requests like this so many times, or someone who speaks English with an Egyptian accent, with a certain type of accent. So those are tailor-made, those are custom expertise that you could add to the list of things that you already prefer. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Clear.
All right, thank you very much. Let me know if there's any more questions. Oh, by the way, I'm yet to see, your chats. If there was anything particularly about this conversation that resonated with you, could you just drop something in the chat box? Let me just have a look and be sure that, this was something that you could relate to one way or the other. And of course, we're still taking questions. I'm not sure how many minutes more we have, admin, but yeah, please just send me a direct message when my time is up. Okay. I'll let you take your time if you have any questions or your comments eventually. So I'll just hand it over to Abigail to just go on. And of course, you can as well reach out to us via marketing@ivoiceafrica.com. And maybe, of course, send your demos to demos@ivoiceafrica.com. If you have some demos that you would like to share with us at some point, of course, please feel free to send them to demos@ivoiceafrica.com. All right, so thank you guys so much, and thank you for paying attention and listening to this conversation. Over to you, admin.
Hi, everyone. I want to be sure everybody can hear me. Okay. So my name is Abigail, and I'm the head of marketing and communications, Ivoice Africa. Ivoice Africa will be hosting a contest where voiceover artists can showcase their prowess in their indigenous languages, except English. You have to follow us on all our social media platforms. Yeah, you have to follow us on all our social media platforms to be abreast of information about this contest. A post-webinar survey link will be sent to you after this webinar. Kindly let us know what you think about this webinar. Click on www.ivoiceafrica.com to register for free to get instant access to our blog articles, offers, as well as free webinars. Just to reiterate that this webinar will be on demand and you can get the webinar anytime. If there's no question, I'd like to know if there's any question because we're coming to the end of this webinar. Does anybody have any question?
I don't think so.
Okay. We've come to the end of this webinar. Thank you for being here today and taking out time to listen. It's been a pleasure being with all of you. Wish you all a very good evening and goodbye.
Goodbye.